I'm Steve Bethel, the co-founder of Bank of Vogue and the Bank of Vogue family of companies. And we're a company that is focused on innovative and relevant solutions to the crisis of stuff. And what does that mean? Basically, we focused on the secondhand clothing market for the last 25 years. My partner and I live off grid in rural Canada. The nearest telephone pole is 2 kilometers away. My personal goal is to be vegetable independent. So we're growing our own vegetables and living our life here. But our work focus has been, how can we make used and a part of the landscape of not only retail, but also manufacturing? How can we create and accelerate circularity? So last night, we canned tomatoes last night, the vegetables, the potato. We're independent on potatoes, turnips, onions, carrots, tomatoes. The only problem with living in Canada is the fruit is a little bit tough. we run out of runway in February here. That makes it a little bit difficult. So just looking back at the last year, as part of Bank of Vogue's family of companies, we run a chain of stores of on-trend vintage stores, which trade under the name of Beyond Retro. And in the last year, we've opened 5 stores, a couple of them that we're really proud of. We're all proud of them all, but in terms of fashion sort of prominence, we opened a store on Argyle Street. So if you look out the door, there's the entrance to the Oxford Street station. You look to your right is the iconic Liberties. But for us to plant the flag of reuse, the flag of vintage, the flag of secondhand on Oxford and Regent Street, it's a good moment for a success about what circularity can look like. Not to speak of the store in Uppsala in Sweden, we're really proud of, Triangla, Tarby, and also the store that we opened in the Westfield Mall this year. And what's really fun about that is that we are on the same playing field as, the Nike store, the Levi's store, or the Versace store in Europe's largest shopping mall at Westfield. But this sort of looking back as well on our big accomplishments this year, I would certainly point to our continued work with Converse and how proud we are that, again, said the word proud, but I shouldn't be proud. But it's encouraging to see that that used can be an input to the Chuck Taylor shoe in the Renew collection. So that we've done several drops that went out this year, and this idea that used can be an input to new manufacturing and make a really engaging product is encouraging for all of us that are fighting the fight of circularity. And then thirdly, looking back at the year of milestones and things that the company could put a flag in the ground and say, this is definitely a step forward in the path to circularity, has been the work we've done with RenewCell. And we've ramped up our supply of cellulose-rich product, that's cotton-rich product, for RenewCell's factory in Sundsvall in southern Sweden. And touching hundreds of containers of material that we've shipped to them is really, so you look at the 3 milestones over the year, we really moved the needle on reuse. We've really done some great work on remanufacturing. And then this last silo of fiber to fiber recycling, it shows us that there is a path to growth, and there is There's definitely some excitement here about where this can go. We believe that there's value in used, and we believe that it is possible to change our diet about how things are bought, made, and remade. And part of that diet is a diet that includes, lessening our dependence on virgin materials. We imagine that Americans buy 450 million pairs of jeans a year. How can we not put that back into resale, remanufacturing, and fiber? It just makes sense. In the room, often in the conversations, the designers for brands are often strongly behind what we're trying to do. They're excited about this. The naysayer in the room is the merchandiser, the person that's trying to protect the profitability of the stores or of the brands. And if there are challenges, the challenges come from trying to find the companies and the brands that understand that doing the things the same way that they've done for 100 years, it's just not sustainable. And you're also trying to, and I've had this exact conversation, you're trying to break supply chains that have existed the same way for 100 years. And trying to have those broken supply chain conversations is incredibly difficult. But it's part of our Sisyphean mission of converting those. I was in New York with a brand even a couple of weeks ago, and the design team are on side. We made a beautiful product, and one of the merchandisers turned to us and said, "Okay, well, what does this cost?" And I said, "Look, I can tell you what it costs, but what I can't do is tell you the cost if you don't do it." And if you look at, if you use organic cotton, it takes 13 kilograms of carbon to grow 1 kilogram of organic cotton. If you can use a remanufactured material, we estimate it's about 3 kilograms of carbon. So how do we, sitting in this beautiful boardroom on the 16th floor in New York, say to a merchandiser, what is the cost of those 10 kilograms of carbon? And how do you get the individual to understand that the effects of what they are doing put Pakistan 1/3 underwater this week? And so how do you have that cost conversation? And in the end of the day, some will get it and some will just not get it. And I would say that but that's the fun part about believing. So we believe we're on the right side of history, and some will just not get it. But the funny thing I would also say, the other challenge this year has actually been to deal with the volume of interest in what we're doing. 3, 4, 5 years ago, when we said, 10 years ago, when we set up our upcycling facility, people are like, let me see if I get this right. You're going to cut up old things and make new things out of it? Really? And now we have so much interest at our door that it's physically, it's like fire hosing on the mouth. Like we're like overwhelmed. So, and trying to triage what and who we should work with, is actually a lot more difficult than I would have thought, because you were like, oh, let's definitely work with everybody. But the reality is you only have so many minutes in the day. I guess that maybe that's probably everybody's problem is that we just, I like this, when Buddha was asked, what's the biggest mistake people make in life? And Buddha said, they think they have more time. but part of our big problem is we just don't have the time. What would help the Bank and Vogues, the Beyond Retros, from a wider industry perspective to make circularity happen faster or quicker, or what would be the secret sauce? And I think of the industry, I think our ask would be, number one is to include reuse and resale in your offering, and be brave about that, because that's the fastest route to a low in carbon footprint. Secondly is challenge your merchandisers, not the designers, because we already have them on side. Challenge the merchandisers to actually look at the cost accountings for projects through a lens of longevity. And I would also challenge the brands that they should legislate a percentage of the materials that they use and consume to be reused, repurposed, recycled. And if they can legislate those, of which some brands have done, that will create an enormous demand. I don't think people realize how incredibly powerful that could be. And so Bank and Vogue being in the full chain of the used business, if a large brand says, hey, X percentage of the material goes into our product will be used, the knock-on effect will actually help the communities around the charity service. And let me take that back. If brands can say, look, we want the input of the bottom 25% of used clothes that's collected across the United States, we want to buy that product so it can be an input to new, as the Renew Cells of the world is doing. The knock-on effect will mean that the charities that are collecting clothes throughout the United States or in the UK or in Europe, they'll actually get paid more for the material, because not only are you moving the bottom 15, 20% from a negative value, you'll actually move it to the positive side of the balance sheet. And the reason why that's really important is that it will have an absolute effect on the value of the material that ultimately is collected by the charities. And ultimately, these charities are the ones that are handing out sandwiches and coffee at 3:00 in the morning, to the homeless people. And so when somebody in that boardroom asks us, well, what's the value here? What does it cost? Well, the value, actually the hidden real community value, is actually helping a lot of the grassroots charities that collect clothes across the United States and in Europe and around the world. But then secondly, it's not to speak of the value of the carbon savings, the material savings. If we were to ask again, what can industry do? You change your diet. Just as we've asked people to lower the amount of meat that they've asked, I'm asking, our ask would be change using virgin material and change your diet. If you change your diet, I actually think you'll live healthier, you'll live longer, and our planet will live longer. But it does take a change. Two months ago, I sat down with Kourtney Kardashian because she's doing a line with Boohoo, and she wants to make a sustainable collection. So they brought in 5 industry experts. We were one of the industry experts, but to sit down with somebody who has a really big tent like a Kardashian, and for them to even be interested in our space, and then for them to even let us into the room to say, okay, well, what does good look like? It's like, we're no longer talking about the fringes or the people like yourself that have led a charge for so many years, and at times probably very much alone and really tough. But then all of a sudden, when you have a Kardashian around the table, you look around and say, "Wait a minute, this is a changed environment." So that will come. That the interview that she did, with me and the other experts will come out in the next couple of weeks here, and I think that just speaks to volumes to that the landscape has changed. I get nervous about speaking beyond or outside of my silo. I want to be somewhat humble about our contribution. I feel like, as opposed to us advocating for this to be part of the mainstream, I think we just keep doing the good, hard work, and then it will get noticed. And it's hard, and it's not. This is not easy, but it's just work. That's all it is. It's just work. And those of us who recognize and kind of embrace the fact that it's just work. And I believe that somewhat naively, the good work will just get noticed, and frankly, people will want to join, our mission.